Yo, this is JG. I'm hanging out with Rob on Front Row Live.
New single just dropped recently, My Side.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that production. You kind of went deep on that one.
Yeah.
You talked about your dad's situation. You talked about growing up poor. Like,
Right.
Tell me about that production, how it felt like getting that stuff out.
I mean, the guy that produced it, Taylor King, he's kind of like an in-house for me now. We developed a good relationship. He's out of New Jersey. Really dope producer.
Yeah.
And basically, when I heard the beat, man, it was just one of them ones where it just felt right, you know? It just came right to me, and then on the second verse, I kind of wanted to get a little deeper with it and just touch on some things that were kind of personal to me. And
Right.
I didn't go too far into it, but just kind of like, you know, like, hey, this is a little bit about me also, you know? So.
Now, is that your first experience of like getting deep on a song like that and being so vulnerable?
No, not really, but it's the first time that on this large of a scale where, you know, we were actually putting it in a lot of outlets, and like, so I knew like a lot of people that weren't familiar with my music, this is gonna be maybe the first thing that they're hearing.
Right.
So in that sense, it was a like kind of vulnerable feeling, but I mean, that's who I am. So.
Right. Now, going into the studio this time around, you've obviously have experience being in the studio, and you've had other tracks out before. What was so different this time around, aside from you like being more personal?
On that record?
Yeah.
Really nothing different, man. Like I said, it was just, you know, I was going through beats that day, and I heard that one, and it just kind of, like, as soon as I heard it, I was like, man, this might be the one right here. And I just fell in love with it right away within like a couple minutes of hearing the beat. So it just came super fast to me, the whole song did. So
Is there anything specific that you look for in a beat whenever you're listening to some?
it's just got to catch me, because the way I write is kind of unconventional. Like, if I turn on a beat, and then the first thing that comes to my head, if I feel it's something dope or it's catchy or like there's a good concept there, then I'll rock with it. If not, I just go to the next beat. So it's got to catch my attention right away.
Right. When you went to school, you focused, that money was focused on building your production studio, right? So how different, or how much do you feel you grew from that time when you first got that first set of studio set to now, to what you're doing today? Like, how much do you feel you grew as being a producer, being a writer, being a performer?
I mean, a lot, substantially. Like, cause that was a time. It was like 5 or 6 years ago now. I was 18 years old. Like I said, I just went and I bought like a little cheap microphone and Pro Tools, the Inbox Mini.
Yeah.
So that's what I was recording with. You know, and since then, obviously, like lyrically, I've grown. Like creatively, like as a songwriter, I've definitely grown. And just like my sound in general. Like back then, I didn't understand really like how to work it.
Yeah.
So it was like, you know, it sounded like I was recording it in a dorm room. So, you know, and eventually I got better and I learned how to do it myself. But now, like, obviously, recording in, you know, big ass studios,
Right.
you know, it helps.
Right. No, definitely. And I noticed earlier you had a book on you. So does reading help you a lot with your lyricism? Like, obviously being a better writer, you know, being able to explain yourself a little more, or how do you go about that as far as like becoming a better writer?
I mean, it's definitely, I'm always trying to hone my skills, like whether it be like reading a little article or a book that I feel like is, you know, intriguing, gets my mind thinking.
Yeah.
I don't like being stagnant, really, like with my mind, you know. So I'm just always trying to be thinking about something. Like, it definitely helps with the writing process that way. But it's funny that you mentioned the book, because that was Rude Jude gave me that book.
Oh, sick.
So yeah, that's why I had it. So I actually haven't even opened it yet. But
Nice.
so.
Now, you're getting ready to drop EP,
Yeah.
3 Feet from Gold.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that process, and you know, what can we expect on that EP?
Right. It's actually been in the works now for like almost 2 years. I've started, scrapped all those records, started over, scrapped all those records, and then started over again. So this is like the third go around of, cause I just grew tired of them, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes to like releasing music, like there's a lot that goes into it. You can't just like
Right.
be like, oh, I'm gonna release this now. So,
Right.
you know, a lot of time went by, and I just grew tired of the record, so I started over. But as for sound, man, like I really try to touch like a little bit of everybody on the EP. As you could probably tell just from like the songs that I have put out so far, like they're all kind of different from each other, you know. But it's just something that I feel like all of the tracks on there are bangers, like, but they all have a different message and, you know, a different feel to them.
Right.
And just the idea, like 3 feet from gold. I don't know if you're familiar with the story, the Napoleon Hill.
I'm not, to be honest with you.
Okay, so
I got to do more reading.
The story was actually presented to me by my team, but
Yeah.
whenever they told me the story, I was like, man, like that kind of fits everything. Basically, it's a guy during the gold rush. He went out west to like find gold, right?
Okay.
So he goes out there, he finds a little bit of gold. He goes back, tells his family or whoever it was, like, hey, like let's go out there and let's get this gold. So they buy a whole bunch of equipment. They go out there and they dig and they dig, and they find a little bit, but then it runs dry.
Yeah.
And so after it runs dry, they try a little harder, never find nothing. So they give up. They go and they sell the equipment to another guy. The guy who bought the equipment from him comes and digs 3 feet in a different direction and finds all the gold. So it's really just like, it kind of just it describes everything really that I'm doing, you know. So I just felt like it was fitting. It was a fitting title, you know.
Do you feel like that's something that's more personal to you, or do you feel like something that's pretty much like how the music industry is? Like you might be getting close, but someone else is going to be a little closer.
It's how the industry is. Really, it's how life is. It's how anything is. You know, you don't know how close you are. If you give up, you never know. Like tomorrow could have been the day that you made it happen. So it's something that I try to think about, because there's definitely times, you know, with anything in life, there's times where it gets tough, like where you don't know if you can keep going, like it's not paying off, like, you know. So I just think about that story and think about the title, and that's what I want people to get from the mixtape too. Yeah. So
and speaking of, you know, tough times, like not only are you like a new artist, but you're also a father, if I'm correct. So how do you really balance that? Because I mean, right now you might not see as much money coming in because you're trying to sell yourself, trying to, you know, prove the world who you are. But like, how does that work being a young father?
Balancing that between being a new artist, because obviously I feel like probably, I won't say the most work, but there's a lot of work being a new artist, because you got to do a lot of things like in a short amount of time with less of a budget. So it's definitely tough, and balancing that with raising a son, it's tough at times. But honestly, like my girl, his mom, like she does, I'll be lying, she does a lot of the work with him. So she makes it easier for me. But I mean, he's awesome too. Like honestly, the whole thing is really an inspiration for me. It just makes me work harder.
Right. Now going back to the EP, like what can we, how soon can we maybe expect this to drop? I know you just dropped that new single.
Yeah. I don't have a date right now, because I'm still working on the track list. I feel like there's a few missing pieces that I need to figure.
But you're not gonna scrap it again though.
No, because I love all the songs. I just feel like I'm missing something and I don't know what it is yet. So I'm going in the studio this week and gonna add some to it. But as far as a date, man, I'm not sure. I have a couple more singles I want to release first, and just keep building up the buzz and letting people know who I am, get them familiar with my sound, and that way when it drops, you know, it'll have the exposure I feel like it deserves.
Right. Now, what has been the biggest challenge for you right now, being a new artist?
I mean, just balancing the fact of, you know, like I said, like budget and things like that. And
but I mean, is that really something that you're fully focused on? Like, I'm sure your team's around that portion of it, but as far as like being the artist himself, like what has been the biggest challenge for you?
I would say that the most challenging thing is just not so much anymore, but is just like finding like my sound and honing that, and building on that and creating a brand that people want to be affiliated with. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the hardest part of anything.
What did it take you to actually like figure that out though? Was there a lot of trial and error with like singles and recording?
A lot of trying and failing and just putting music out and getting people's feedback and seeing like what worked and what didn't. And I'm at a space now where I'm more comfortable with my sound than I ever before. Because before I was catching a lot of comparisons. I don't catch them as much anymore, so that's a good thing for me. Like, so.
I mean, aside from Nick Jonas, but you know, I think you're just gonna be stuck on that one.
Yeah, I get that all the time. Like I used to work at a restaurant serving tables, and at least 3 or 4 times a week somebody would be like, "Has anyone ever told you you look like me?" So I'm like, "Yes, thank you."
For those that haven't heard your music or don't know who you are, what is so different from? I mean, there's tons of new artists every day, but what is so different about you that they should like really go ahead and check you out?
I feel like right now the wave of new artists, I don't want to like insult anybody or nothing like that. But I just feel like it's really dumbed down.
Okay.
A lot of the music right now, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like everything has its place,
Right.
you know. But my music, I feel like what's different is I give you a little bit of that, like things that you can just rock out to and whatever, dance to or whatever. But then I also give you things to think about, like some conscious music too. So I'm kind of like a balance of those two things, and it's like a duality thing. So I think that's something that people can, get into.